Let's return to more of the Financial Survival Network. Once again, here's your host, Kerry Lutz.
This is Kerry Lutz. You're listening to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com on 1590 WPSL. You're going to be hearing from somebody who really understands the precious metals markets and the real economy. He's got a delightful nickname. He's a personal friend. His name is Turd Ferguson of TFMetalsReport.com. Hello, Turd. How you doing?
Fine, thank you, Kerry.
You watching the precious metals markets today? The price of gold and silver, they keep getting trampled upon, don't they?
Yes, they are. I'm typing up a new post to my website as we speak this morning and trying to warn people that it sure looks like another leg down is underway. And I can't get this thing posted fast enough because it certainly is underway.
Yeah. Hey, you want a speakerphone?
I've just got a little echo in my office.
Echo in your office? Okay. Yeah. Hey, I just want to get a good signal. So, yeah, I mean, you just watch it and you just shake your head in disbelief because it's so contrary to what's happening in the real economy, isn't it?
Well, that's absolutely right. You know, a lot of the excitement, the cause of the sell-off this morning is strength in the U.S. dollar. And if you listen to the financial press, they'll tell you about how great the dollar looks. And what a lot of folks fail to consider is that when measuring strength in the U.S. dollar, it's always against all of the other paper currencies around the world, the euro, the pound, the yen. And so when the dollar is going up, it's not a reflection of dollar strength. It's a reflection of how terrible the other currencies are. Gold and silver are the only true forms of money, the only forms of money that have been around literally for millennia. Paper currencies will come and go. The dollar will have its day as well very soon. In the meantime, the only smart plan is to continue to accumulate physical gold and silver as financial protection.
Yeah, highly discounted prices as well. But you mentioned that the dollar eventually is going to be passé effectively. The current dollar, I guess we'll get a new dollar, like we got a new deal, which you know how that worked out. But we're getting to end game here, aren't we?
It certainly appears that way. You know, the hard part and the biggest challenge that I've had, Kerry, is underestimating the powers of what we call the powers that be. I think their main power, the big banks, the global bankers, the global central banks, the main power that they have is the power to kind of put off the inevitable. I mean, the inevitable that's coming is a kind of a realignment of the entire global currency trade settlement structure, where for the past 60 years or so, 65 years, it's all been based upon the U.S. dollar. And for most of us, that's all we've ever known, is this world where the dollar is king. But that's a very temporary phenomenon. And, you know, before the dollar, it was the British pound. And, I mean, you go back in time to all these different civilizations that have had their moment in the sun. America's moment in the sun, unfortunately, has come and gone through all of this debt and deficit spending that we've built up over the last particularly 40 years. And the world will soon move on to a new global currency regime. And that's when the time's going to come that America is going to have to pay the piper.
Yeah, and it's a new world order, effectively. I don't like that term, but you know what I'm saying. Basically, the West is in a protracted period of decline, and the East is ascendant.
Well, that's exactly right. If you think of the U.S., in just 40 years, we've gone from the largest creditor nation in the world to now the largest debtor nation in the world. And it is that is unsustainable. The creditor nations, though, the Chinese, the Russians, the Indians, the Brazilians, the South Africans, all of those countries, they see what's going on just like you and I do, and they're not stupid. They're not just going to sit there and take it. And so they are the ones who are working behind the scenes to establish this new global currency structure. It will, without a doubt, have some type of gold, precious metal backing, giving it some gravitas, if you will, to use the old Bush-Cheney term, to make it different, to make it competitive, versus the current paper structure. And it will happen. It will supersede, take over, dominate the world in the future. And again, that will be the point. It may seem like, oh, everything's okay. Everything's going to be fixed. The Fed can just print money and paper over everything. Well, if that was the case, if just simply printing money from whole cloth was the way that you could advance prosperity and make everything great, then wouldn't we have figured that out centuries ago? Of course not. Every civilization, every country that has ever tried that, it has been doomed to failure, just as we are doomed to failure. The advancement of this new global currency structure will be the change point where we all suddenly look back and go, whoa, what happened here? And that will be the true decline. And that's when the pain will really be felt here in the U.S. for all of our mistakes and all of our empty promises of the last 40 years.
Yeah, it's going to be like an instant decrease in the standard of living of like 40 to 60%, like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, do you think people are starting to wake up? I have to tell you a funny story. I was coming to the station here in the morning. I forgot to fill up my tank last night with gas, so I stopped by this gas station. I took a picture of it on the pump, written right above the gauge. It says, "The Federal Reserve is a scam."
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so maybe they're waking up, you think?
No. I think intrinsically, instinctively, I think people sense that things just aren't right. But I mean, most folks, between taking the time to worry about getting their kids through college and their parents are sick and geriatric care and funding their mortgage and all this, because they don't have time, they don't have the space on the hard drive to really sit down and observe how this is all falling apart. So unfortunately, I think the vast majority of people are going to be caught by surprise. And then, as you were mentioning earlier, I mean, look at this laundry list of scandals in Washington, from the IRS to all the way to the death of these folks in Benghazi, and nobody cares. I mean, this is an outrage. The things that we've seen, the stuff of the IRS or the wiretapping of the AP. I mean, this is outrageous. Yet nobody's up in arms. Nobody's marching on Washington. Nobody's demanding resignations. I mean, it's like, oh, whatever. So
another day in the neighborhood.
Exactly. It doesn't really leave me optimistic. And so anyway, in the end, it just falls on the individual. I mean, this has always been a country of rugged individuals, and it falls on the individual, you, I, and everybody listening, to make these changes for themselves. You can alert as many as you can, and you can call as many of your Congress people as you'd like. In the end, you just have to be personally responsible to see with your eyes and think with your brain and act appropriately and act accordingly and prepare for what is most assuredly coming.
Yeah, and in the end, you can't rely on the government. They're not going to be coming to help you. You can only rely on yourself. I mean, I always tell you, get some food. It doesn't have to be a lot, because I think if it goes more than a couple of weeks, if there's a disruption, then we got really big problems that you're going to be, it's Mad Max or whatever. But have a few weeks worth of food, have some water, have a means of being able to defend yourself, and have a plan, because and I know you and I both have plans for when this is going to happen, because I don't believe it's just going to be a benign event like the Giants won the Super Bowl. Isn't that nice? News at 11. It's not going to be that way.
Well, no, that's right. And you do have to have a plan. And it can be just as simple as always keeping your gas tank full. But you're right. You need to have food on hand. You need to have, as much as some don't like to say it, you need to have ammunition, perhaps a firearm or two. I mean, you don't know. I mean, let's just put it this way. If there is a 1 in a million chance that your house could get hit by lightning and burn down, you may go through the day just fine without homeowners insurance. But if your house does get struck by lightning and you knew it was a possibility, you're going to feel like a real fool for not having that insurance. There's a possibility that this could all end very badly for the U.S., for the global economy. But yet, if you're not taking steps to prepare yourself against that eventuality, and then it does happen, again, you're going to feel pretty silly.
Yeah. And you know something, we're going to pause for the news in a moment, and I want you to hold over. But I just wanted to say that only under Obamacare can you go and get insurance for something that's already happened. You get sick, then you can get the insurance at no additional cost. We'll be talking more about these real important issues with Turd Ferguson. Kerry Lutz, 1590 WPSL. Do you drive a lot? Do you spend a lot of time at the gym? How about running? Or just waiting around for things to happen? Well, if that's the case, then you're like me, and you should seriously take a look at getting audiobooks from Audible. It is an amazing service. I've been using it for over 6 years. During that time, I've downloaded and listened to nearly 250 books. One of my favorite books that I listened to that I just would have never found the time to read was the Steve Jobs biography by Walter Isaacson. It really gave me an insight into the man. It really inspired me to improve my game in all areas of my life, because our time is precious and you should never lose sight of that fact. And that's why if I'm in traffic, if I'm going for a ride, like when I rode to the studio this morning, I listen to a book. Listening to a book just is enriching. Some of the narrators are spectacular. They make the book come alive for you. I can't recommend them highly enough. I suggest you go to audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. That's audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ. And go sign up for a free 1-month membership. You'll get a free book as well, and start listening. Did you know they have over 100,000 titles? And that number goes up every month. So go over there, sign up, get that book that you have been dying to read but just haven't had the time to do, and become an Audible member today.
Let's return to more of the Financial Survival Network. Once again, here's your host, Kerry Lutz.
And we are back. I'm Kerry Lutz on the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com, 1590 WPSL. We are talking to none other than Turd Ferguson of TFMetalsReport.com. Turd's been discussing these issues for more years than I have. Turd, we're back. So on your publication, you got tons of subscribers. Are many of them very fazed by these precious metal slam downs?
Fortunately not, Kerry. I think most of the folks at my site, and we call them subscribers, we call them members, but it's a free site. Anybody can go there and just register and begin to interact with everybody. And it's a terrific community. We worked really hard to make it different from other sites on the internet where, you get these petty squabbles and name calling and all that. The number one rule is the golden rule. Yeah. The number one rule is the golden rule. You treat everybody the way you want to be treated. And so it's a great community, a great interaction, and a lot of learned folks. And so most of the folks that visit TF Metals Report they see it for what it is. They recognize, they know what the fundamentals are. They know the fun and games that the banks play, these big bullion banks that move metal around the planet. And they see this decline for what it is. There's a real and true shortage of metal in size. And there's been a shortage of metal in small size even since its latest beatdown. But if you want to acquire 50 metric tons, 20 metric tons, that type of metal, if you're a central bank or a big investor or fund, there are big delays and big premiums you got to pay. And I think folks recognize that. And so they know what's going on. They know that this jam down of the paper price is mainly being used by the banks, even caused by the banks, just to shake some of the metal loose so that they can transfer it to these big buyers, these hoarders, these creditor nations that we were talking about in the segment before the news.
Yeah, it makes just total sense, because if you can slam down the price enough, then stocks like GLD that supposedly are holding a whole bunch of gold and SLV, which holds a bunch of silver, you drum down the price enough, people sell their shares off, and then the metal gets claimed by the larger investors and shipped offshore.
Exactly. And I mean, and it's all the paper metal. I mean, this is a lot of folks work with a financial advisor, whether it's a CFP or a broker at Merrill Lynch or whatever. And if they were to call up and say, hey, I want to own some gold, well, the financial advisor will first kind of laugh at them, but maybe they'll patronize them enough to give them a 5% allocation or 10% allocation. And then what they usually buy is something like the exchange traded fund with the symbol GLD. And so that's your regular retail investor. And when you can create a smash down in price, like we had back in April, that blew through the bottom of the range that gold had been in for about 18 months, and then you can get folks like CNBC to come on and tell you how the bull market's over. And you get these retail investors to say, you know what, I've had enough. And the financial advisor looking for a commission will say, yeah, you know what, let's sell that darn gold. And all of that selling of that paper frees up physical metal, the actual gold itself, for the trustees of gold then to ship off to physical buyers, the big central banks. China imported in March alone over 200 metric tons of gold in March. And we haven't even seen what they've done in April when all of this other stuff was occurring. That big depository of gold, the GLD ETF, held over 1,300 metric tons, about 1,350 metric tons of gold at the first of the year. It's now down to 1,050.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of gold that has been raided out of there and shipped into other central bank and Eastern vaults and not coming back. Not coming back, no question about it.
Yeah, and Harvey Organ, he said that it was in a non-delivery month, meaning certain months on the COMEX, you buy the contracts, and deliveries historically take place. I think it was January or February. He said that 41 tons of gold left the COMEX for delivery, which was unheard of, and then 10 or 20 the following month. Last month, another 10 or 12. I'm not positive about the numbers, but roughly. And you see this metal just leaving the COMEX warehouses, probably going to the east as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And London is really probably the biggest physical exchange, or at least always has been. It's quickly being replaced by Shanghai. But London allocates and delivers anywhere between 10 to 25 tons of gold, physical gold. This is real stuff. Every single day, 20 business days a month, we're talking 400 tons, 300 tons a month. Shanghai, and this is really interesting, Kerry, the Shanghai Gold Exchange has already allocated and delivered over 1,000 metric tons of gold this year. But here's the interesting part. They've hardly delivered any since the 1st of May. That whole 1,000 metric tons was delivered in the first 4 months of the year. And if you go on their website, you can see they've hardly delivered any since the 1st of May. Are they out? Yeah, how about that?
And, Ned Schmidt was telling me yesterday, Ned's a big gold guy too, that for the first time in 7 years, jewelry sales in the U.S. are up. And that tells you something. And the cash for gold guys are basically sucking wind.
Yeah, that would probably be right. I mean, and that's kind of what we get at. That's what I was getting at earlier in talking about the GLD. The people that are selling gold, in response to what they hear on CNBC or someplace, they're selling the paper equivalent of gold. Their advisors are selling the GLD. But you don't see people selling their little stockpile of gold American Eagles or walking down and saying, I've got this 1,000 ounces that I've been storing. I'm giving up and dumping the physical metal. I mean, that's not happening at all. Every time they take price down, demand for physical metal goes through the roof. We sold, here's just one little anecdotal bit of evidence. The U.S. Mint issues sales reports every couple of days or so, but they keep a good running total. For the month of April, last month, the second largest selling month of gold 1-ounce coins that they've ever had, behind December of 2009. If you think, okay, well, maybe that's a seasonal thing. No, they sold more gold 1-ounce coins this April than they sold in April 2012, April 2011, and April 2010 combined.
Wow.
That's the amount of physical demand that's out there at these low prices. So when folks try to tell you that, oh yeah, gold's going down, gold's going to go to, no, it's not. Because we're rapidly approaching this end game where physical metal is the price of that is detaching from this heavily manipulated and gamed paper price that is set in New York. And when that happens, when that finally takes place, that's when you'll begin to really see a rapid appreciation in the price of metal.
Yep. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And like you said, this is insurance. And that's why individuals are not selling their stacks of gold and silver because, like you said, just because the fire or the earthquake didn't hit your home yesterday doesn't mean you don't say, gee, I got ripped off, man. That insurance really is not very good because I didn't get to collect on it. You say, well, I'll keep it in force because it might just hit tomorrow or the day after. And that's why people are holding on to their personal precious metal hoards.
That's exactly right. And you know, I guess I've spent a little time here talking about the paper conversion value of gold. I like to use that term because really, if you were to sell your gold, what are you going to do? You walk into a store, you fork it over, and they're going to hand you what? They're going to hand you paper money in exchange for it, right?
Yeah.
So if that's really what you want to do, if you want to take your ounce of gold and get, 1,300 American dollars for it in exchange, hey, knock yourself out. But that's not what people are doing. And when I talk about it going up in value in American dollars, okay, that's all well and good, but that's really not the reason why you want to own it. You want to own it as a store of wealth against this constant debasement and devaluation of the U.S. dollar and whatever paper money that most of your investments are denominated. Heck, Kerry, the Japanese yen has gone down compared to the dollar over 30% just in the last 6 months. Yep. So all paper money is, when you have all of this debt, the only way you can service that debt is to just print more and more and more money so that you can pay off yesterday's debt with the cheaper dollars of tomorrow. That's the only way that works.
Yeah,
so for those folks that think that this is over, it's not. There's a long ways for this to go, and gold is your only protection.
Yeah, and confiscation, well, basically debasement, inflation is a form of confiscation. That's what you have to be aware of. Turd, it's always a pleasure. Just give us your website again and how people contact you.
The website is my two initials, TF, for Turd Ferguson, tfmetalsreport.com. And I actually just posted a new post over the commercial break that I've been working on all morning. So if people want to read more about my current thoughts, just go to tfmetalsreport.com. I update it, write something just about every day.
All right, Turd, thanks again. And you're listening to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1590 WPSL. We'll talk to you again soon, Turd. Go to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. We're optimistic. Join our optimistic battle to take back the country. Sign up for your free newsletter. Get the special reports.